Hello to all of our viewers here, and welcome to Alan and Hannah Cohen. As you can read their names here on Zoom, this is our first effort, our first edition of trying to connect the shul, one member to another virtually, trying to have some informal conversations to learn about each other. And hopefully over the course of this series we'll learn about a pretty diverse group that we have here at the shul. And looking forward to getting to know our two guests here this morning. So Hannah, I want to start with you. I know that your background, and most people don't know this, your family roots in Czechoslovakia. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you have to remind me though, were you born there or was your, okay, so tell us a little bit about your family history and what you know about Czechoslovakia in terms of Jewish community and how your family came over here.
I don't know much about Czechoslovakia because I was born there in 1947 in what today is considered the Czech Republic.
Right.
And my parents met right after the war. Both my parents went through the Holocaust.
Was that in a DP camp?
No. They met in Prague. My father was a partisan fighter in the woods.
Wow.
In the Slovakia part. They both came from the Slovakia part of Czechoslovakia. And my father was 18 years older than my mother. So my father lost his wife and 3 little children,
Wow.
Which he hid before he went off to fight in the woods with his comrades, and they were betrayed and murdered.
Wow, and
in the meantime,
he had to start all over again.
Wow. Had the chutzpah to start all over again.
Yeah, most people wouldn't have the strength to do that. Yeah.
I don't know.
He started over again. He was in a prisoner of war camp. So
wow.
He was in a prisoner of war as well in Russia somewhere. And he says his comrades he had typhus. His comrades kept him alive on potato peels.
Wow.
In the meantime, my mother, and it's very hard to get all the details from my parents, especially my mother, who was very reluctant to talk about her experience, but I'm putting together that she and her family were transported on the railroad cars to Auschwitz somewhere like in 1944,
wow.
just prior to the end of the war, but unfortunately, she wound up in Auschwitz with her mother and her mother and a couple of younger siblings. Just went directly to the gas chamber.
Wow.
And my mother, due to her unbelievable resilience and I don't know what it is, will to live, managed somehow to get a secretarial job for one of the colonels because she spoke high German. And she managed to keep herself and her younger sister alive.
Wow.
And
your father, he was in a Jewish partisan group, or
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And did he have any pride with regard to those partisan efforts and being able to fight against the Nazis, or he just didn't want to talk about that whole part of his life?
Well, it's funny you said that. I did hear him say at some point that when they when they were coming, I guess when they were going from Czechoslovakia to Israel, they really wanted to come to the US, but the quota system would not allow them to do that. Their next choice was to go to Israel. And somewhere during that trip, my father decided he didn't want anything to do with Judaism at all.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother said, no. And
That's
so
very
my
powerful.
father, he managed to embrace the faith, even though he went through such horrors.
Now, I know you and I share some of that unfortunate background in terms of our ancestors and where we come from, and some of them who, of course, didn't make it. And I think for both of us, it has inspired us to kind of take part in our local Holocaust Museum, in the Virginia Holocaust Museum, and trying to educate people about that. So, when did you get involved in Virginia Holocaust Museum, Hannah? How has that kind of been for you to kind of re-encounter or to try to preserve the memory of the Holocaust in some way? How did you come on the board there?
I was asked to get on the board a few years ago.
Hannah, stop. Didn't you start first with Bobby Weisberger and the second generation?
Oh yeah, I was part of the second generation. Alan, would you turn off the oven? Do you know how to do it?
Certainly. No, but
Okay.
I've got Shabbos dinner going here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was always peripherally involved with, being second generation Holocaust generation, right? And then I really liked the Holocaust Museum. I thought that they did a very good job with their exhibits. In particular, I thought it was very important for them to educate the young people that this happened.
Yeah. I came across an incredible statistic that some surveys say that 25% of American millennials don't believe that the Holocaust ever took place, which makes our work at the museum so important.
what's the percentage, do you know, of Jewish millennials who don't think it exists?
I don't know the answer to that question. I will say, Alan, I'm impressed that you came in from the water. You're completely dry. The water.
I'm not. I changed my shirt.
The water must have split for you or something like that. Now, Alan, I can tell from your accent you're not from Czechoslovakia, and
Richmond.
and you're not from Richmond either. So, where are you from, Alan?
Well, I grew up in Bronx, New York, which is,
Okay.
for me, that's New York. I never think, a lot of people think New York means Manhattan, but Hannah was from Brooklyn and I was from Bronx, so we were destined never to meet.
And you were president of our synagogue, this beloved synagogue of ours.
I was.
About 20 years ago, is that?
I can't tell you. It could easily be 20 years ago. I've lost track. Everything a year and a half or more ago.
Now, how did that happen? I know you belong to another congregation here locally, and then you, at some point, you became the president, I think when Rabbi Rowan was here. So how did that all come to be?
So we started out belonging to Congregation Ora Me, I think. No, Bethel. We belonged to Bethel maybe 10 years, I don't know. And then our children, they were both bar and bat mitzvahed and
Bethel.
From Bethel. And the reason we joined Bethel, when we came to town, I don't know, everybody has a different reason. We picked what's the one synagogue in town that has the most children. That's all. That was the whole decision process. And then after they were finished with bar bat mitzvah, I guess, I don't know. It was a few more years after that. But we left to go to Orami because we thought that people were more secular,
Okay.
or more hippie, or more.
Okay.
But eventually, we met Leatrice Kaplan. Do you remember Leatrice Kaplan, Rabbi?
I might have met her.
Okay, so Leatrice Kaplan became good friends. We were particularly, I was taking a class with Richard Goldberg. You know him, right?
I know him quite well.
He taught
a lot of people here do. Yeah.
Yeah. So so Leatrice and I went to class together a lot, and we would, go gossip, I guess whatever you're not supposed to do about all the other people in class. But one day she invited me to her synagogue where Rabbi Rohn was. And so I showed up there at that synagogue. We both did, Hannah, right? Just test it out, because our synagogue already, or me, was very problematic to us because we weren't meeting any Jewish people there or something like that. There was some problem having to do with taluses. Hannah was on the board there, and I was the secretary, and I was writing stories and she was saying, why don't we have some taluses out in front? And they were saying, no way, because that's a lot of pressure. So anyway, we went to—
So you met Rabbi Rohn, okay.
And I really enjoyed Rabbi Rohn, and I sat down in the back, in the men's section, next to Richard Goldberg. And he started to teach me how they read. He says, look, we use a sitter, and I didn't know any of that stuff. And here you read this and that. It seemed like a whole system and a code. Looked sort of mathematical. So I got into it. I would just sit with him. Well, first we went once a month, then we went twice a month, then we went once a week. And he would go through the whole sitter with me. And I would label it and mark it until I sort of had the routine down. I remember there was a time when I practiced, I spent time with Bill Hill, you know him too.
Yeah, sure.
Learning the Amidah and how to do it quickly. And we would practice and practice. And I don't know. But anyway.
Okay, and how did you get from there to the front of the room?
Okay, so we started getting more observant, not religious, but observant.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't waver on my religion.
Okay.
But we became more observant, and we just started, it just seemed to be a whole interesting code and system and special things and secret handshakes, the whole thing.
Okay.
So, as you know, presidents are people don't want to be president of a synagogue because that means that's a complicated job. It's a lot of work, and the pay is pretty good, but outside of the pay,
right,
it's sort of difficult. So when everybody else refused, they got up to me, I guess, after the previous president.
I was going to ask you what the campaign was like for that election towards the presidency, and must have been really cut.
It was easy.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Okay, what was your
unopposed?
What's your favorite moment? What's the moment that gives you the most pride, or what do you think of when you look on those years? I know Hannah was a very involved first lady as well, and I don't know, what's one story or one experience you think of in terms of leading the congregation during those years?
Well, I don't really have a thing that was what experience, specific experience, but I ran it in my mind. I'm an entrepreneur, and I ran it like a business. First, it was a wreck when I came there. I thought there's nobody running anything.
Okay.
I put up manuals. I wrote books, which you maybe still have. I started to work with Goldberg to try to I had to learn Word and Excel and whatever, Microsoft. I never knew that because I had to set up books, and I just got into a really great thing.
That's amazing. So you learned those programs to help better run the shul.
Yeah, and I learned how to do the trash efficiently because no one else was doing it.
I think I remember Hannah told me once that you guys took out the trash.
Always.
Yeah.
And bingo. I ran bingo. What was his name? Harold Levin. Do you remember him?
Yes, a blessed memory.
Harold and Rochelle Levin, they were in charge of bingo, but they were getting older. So I took over bingo, and Hannah and I had this plan. I can tell you two really things that we were very proud of. Both were failures.
Okay.
But I was very proud of. One was bingo. So we said, we've got to really get the income of the congregation to be increased. And our biggest source was bingo. We said, we can really improve bingo. What we did was we took a trip, Hannah and I, around the whole country. I mean, from Richmond to California. And we would stop at what we thought were the best and biggest and most exciting bingo halls. And we designed a whole new system. It was going to be the electronic bingos, and they were just starting that at KBI. And I designed all new bingo cards and new games, and it was going to be exciting. And we're going to do it the way the big mega bingo places.
Okay.
And so the first day, Ben Friedlander will remember this. I almost lost the presidency because of that. So I brought in all the new bingo games and everything, to which no one in Richmond, they knew how to do an X or an I. That was it. And I had all these complicated mazes and mathematical things. So they all started screaming and yelling. And
Okay, well, that sounds interesting. So you mentioned the business spirit or entrepreneurial spirit, and so maybe just tell people, because they don't know about your background. I know you didn't have just one career. You didn't have two careers. I think you had multiple careers. So maybe just give people a quick overview of what you did professionally, and just for personal. I'll take a personal privilege here. I'd like you to start with the donut store.
That's a good
okay.
thing.
But
So
a
now
quick overview of your professional evolution.
So to not answer your question, the second thing that was most exciting was
Okay.
my attempt to change the direction of our synagogue. That was before you came. So Hannah and I had this idea that we wanted to make it I want to keep it orthodox, but push the boundary to as close to egalitarian as possible.
Yeah.
And also that we were really declining in membership. We were, membership was going down. We had no money coming in. So we decided we'll go across the whole country. And here we took other people with us. There was a whole assignment of people to visit all the synagogues that were really doing bad. A new rabbi came in and turned it around, and now they're doing great.
Well, what are 2 or 3 shuls that you visited?
If I remember, there was something in Memphis.
Okay.
That was a big shul.
That's fine. Two or three cities. That was Baron.
The other one we went to go, what was the rabbi who used to be here? It was Sterling, between Hollywood and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's Sterling.
Yeah. Rabbi. Yeah. So you went to Young Israel of Hollywood, Rabbi David School.
That's right, because he turned that shul.
And you went to Baron Hirsch congregation to practices. I remember.
And two others.
And you paid for these trips yourself to go and learn about other shuls.
Well, I paid for my trips, but other people were traveling.
Oh, what other people came to you on this learning tour?
I think there were like a couple of groups of people, Hannah.
Okay.
Ackman's maybe.
Okay, Alan, can we pivot so people can learn about your professional background? It's a very interesting story.
Sure, you're steering me back to your second question. So my professional background is all combined. I have a background in optics. So as an optometrist, I was a donut store? I'm very entrepreneurial. Didn't work out so well. We had this idea, I follow modern monetary theory. I don't look at money the same way other people. We're not on a gold standard. It's just an accounting thing. It's not such a thing that I think we have to worry about. So I'm a very entrepreneurial guy, and I understood at the time, this is the 1960s, Hannah? Yes, somewhere in the 1960s, that a lot of companies would have IPOs. They go on the market and they issue paper. They print little piece of paper that says, these are shares of my company. I'll trade them to you for US legal tender, money. And I said, what could be greater than that? I print paper, I go to the copy machine, and that was the goal, to start a business and go on the market, turn out a lot of paper to people, they give us money, and then we walk away. That failed. Because of our own, I can give you a lot of my entrepreneurial.
Hannah, you participated in that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, not as much in the donut business because I had 2 little children, so I was mainly home. But I encouraged it and I watched it. We wanted to basically become franchise people.
Okay.
And we would be selling these franchises, but it didn't work.
And then you switched to optometry.
Yeah, but first, part of our big entrepreneurial thing, we built this whole building on Route 1. It still stands there. It's a liquor store.
Oh.
But I don't know how to get this to the camera.
All right.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. The gold ring. Donut. Oh, look at that. Okay.
That's our original wooden nickel, the gold ring, donuts and ice cream. And it was good
Yeah, I see. You had a free cup. But you're saying that despite the marketing wisdom here, it failed?
Yeah,
Yeah, because if there was a lot of business acumen that was missing.
Okay.
I micromanaged it much too detailed, and I missed some of the big picture. I learned a lot of things from that. I also overinvested other people's money, of course.
So like a lot of people, after going from donuts, you decided to go towards optometry.
So we went bankrupt, and after that, I wanted to go back to my original profession, which was I was a systems analyst. I worked with computers.
Okay, I didn't know
But
that.
nobody really wanted to hire me back so easily because they said, well, you dropped out. What happened the last 2 years? You're missing from business, because I was in the donut business or something. Anyway, I got a job temporarily, but I started to mope around because I was at NASA, where my daughter works, but I was in the department where you didn't have to do anything. So it was very boring. At any rate, Hannah she said she's going to go back to school and become an optician. Is that what you said? No, a psychologist or something.
yeah, I was going to go into mental health.
Mental health.
Yeah, I said, look, he's working on his thing. Who knows how long it's going to take him to decide what to do next. I better move on and make plans for myself. And one of the things that I had addressed but declined was going to optometry school and becoming an optometrist, because we would have to move the family out of state, and I didn't think I would be able to pass organic chemistry, and it was just.
Yeah, and you guys were in Maryland, right?
We were in Maryland at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's looking over all my stuff about optometry, and he says, "What's this?" And I said, "Optometry is not for me." Blah blah blah. He says, "I'll look at it." I says, "Okay, go look at it." In the meantime, I was going to go into mental health, at a community college. I picked out the apartment we were going to move in, where the kids were going to go. I had it all planned.
Yeah, that's also not so common, to go from baked goods to mental health. It's also not so common. But Alan, eventually you have a law degree, right, Alan?
So after optometry,
Yeah.
I opened the practice. Law is an interest. How did I get into law?
Yeah, can you tell the story about admission? Is that allowed? Are you allowed to divulge that? The admission to U of R Law School.
Oh yeah.
Oh, first I was turned down for admission to Indiana for optometry school because I was too old. They didn't have age discrimination then. And I had to cut my ponytail off. I had to go through hoops to get into that school. But Richmond was easier to get into. They says, no, we don't have any part-time law degrees or school, no night school or anything. I says, how much would it cost? They told me a number. I says, I took out my checkbook. I started to write, and they says, okay, we'll take you in.
There you go. I like that story. We're getting very controversial here on this program, but I think our ratings will be up as a result, I guess.
I think that was fake news.
So I don't think it's fake. So, okay. So
administration.
What motivated you to go to law school?
So in optometry school, I have a background in physics and optics. And then in optometry school, I saw that there was I had taken summer job with Bausch and Lomb as they just came out, invented soft lenses, or soft lenses were first becoming commercialized. They're a kind of contact lens, but a mushy one.
Okay.
And I would go around to optometrists and I would teach them how to use it and so on. And I realized, as did everybody else, they would love to have a bifocal contact lens. No such thing existed. But I know from my physics background, that doesn't sound too hard. And so I designed one, and I had to get it patented. And I did that all. The school allowed me to do that. I was going to Indiana University, so I got involved in the patents and patenting it and things like that. Then when I got out, we started to market my invention. And no company.
Just interject, just as a point. Yes. My husband, on his own, went through that whole patenting process himself without hiring a lawyer or anything like that.
That sounds impossible.
No, it's actually
did it all himself. Besides thinking of this really crazy way of doing it, He patented
So
really
you knew a lot about the law before you entered law school.
No,
unfortunately,
I
yes.
know what you know from reading newspapers and watching.
Okay, all right. But you studied patents. You studied patents. Okay.
I
He
actually,
patented his, all of his inventions. He
you
patented.
asked me how I got into law school. So what happened is then Hannah and I decided to peddle our invention, and we would travel the whole world. That means we went to kibbutzes in Israel that were making contact lenses. We went to Czechoslovakia where they first invented the soft lens. We went to Sweden. We went all over the whole world and the US to every company.
Hannah, do you know Czech? Do you know the Czech language?
No, nobody spoke Czech in my
Okay.
house
Okay.
when it was
Yiddish.
mainly Yiddish.
Right.
And if they
Okay.
didn't want the kids to hear or to
Right.
understand, they would go into
Right.
Hungarian.
Sorry, Alan, for interjecting. Okay, so you went all over the world.
We both did. And
Yeah.
we sat on the doorstep of every place until they would talk to us. But they didn't like talking to people. They want to see your attorney because they were afraid to talk to another
Right.
attorney.
Okay.
So, and then I had a friend who he passed away and he was interested in law school. That was Uzi Seltzer, Hannah. And
So you went to law school and it helped.
so law school, but they don't have a patent law school here.
Mhm.
So we went to, where do we go, Hannah? It was
Concord,
Concord, New Hampshire. Pure, just patents. That's all they did there. School of Intellectual Property and Information. Law.
Very interesting. Okay.
And so I got a good background in that. Then we kept going around and eventually it was a complicated situation, how we licensed our patents and how they try to rip us off and every other person and also each other, the big companies, they're criminal. But eventually one company, 3M, who I gave a license, they didn't succeed in getting it FDA approved by our invention.
Mm-hmm.
So they sold it to Alcon. And then one day some foolish attorney at Alcon said, well, we have a contract with that 3M sold to them with Alan Cohen. He says, oh, they'll honor it, fools. So there we go.
I'm going to transition now because what I heard a few different businesses, a lot of science, some law. So it's very fascinating. But people can contact you if they're interested in hearing more of those stories. I want to transition. I know, Alan, I know you love to study Torah and specifically Medrash, or as they say, Midrash in your classes. So how did you get interested how did you get such a fascination for Midrash? And when did you start dedicating your time to learning and studying Torah through Midrash and teaching? And how did that develop? Just your fascination that you wanted to share this part of the vast Torah literature with other people.
So my inspiration for most everything came from Rabbi Rohn. Rabbi Rohn was like 2 rabbis before you at our synagogue or something.
Yes.
And that's how I joined, because one thing I liked about him, the most amazing thing, because first of all, you understand, I really enjoyed learning all this stuff from Richard Goldberg, the whole new system of how people stand and bow and do this and that. Rabbi Rohn's sermons just entranced me. He's sort of a comedian. I don't know about sort of, he is. He writes comic books or did cartoons, and he's a very funny person. I mean, not funny, but you know, he's very enjoyable to listen to. And he would give his sermons. He would always tell stories, and the stories were engrossing, absolutely engrossing. Sometimes they were from the Midrash. Often he'd intertwine things from the Midrash and this and that, but they were just human stories. And they could make me cry sometimes. They make you exhilarated. It's just his way of presenting it, what drew me in.
The story.
And so he, you know, intertwined all these Midrash with his stories, and they were very entertaining stories to me. I really enjoyed them.
You fast forward and you taught some Midrash at the JCC, and you actually acted out some Midrash at the JCC. I would go into talking about your snake costume, but I think I'll leave that aside for the moment. But Hannah, you both of you got very involved in the JCC. Hannah, when did you get involved with the JCC, and how did you start deciding to serve on the board and various capacities and committees and stuff like that?
I love the JCC. The JCC to me epitomizes everything that I love about being Jewish. All of its values, its outlook. I just love the JCC. Everyone is welcome at the JCC and everybody shows up. And it starts with the young people at the front desk who somehow or another manage to know everybody's name and greet you in the warmest possible way, no matter what you look like, no matter how you walk in or wheel in.
Mm-hmm.
And just everyone is welcome warmly.
Mm-hmm.
I had the privilege of listening to a little nursery class.
Mm-hmm.
And here was an African-American teacher, a delightful woman. She was terrific as a teacher, and it was time to have a snack. And lo and behold, they said a bracha in Hebrew before they had the snack.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made my heart soar.
Wow.
So I just love the whole diversity that is so inclusive
Mm-hmm.
at the JCC. So it's
That's
a
great.
place that feels wonderful.
I want to comment that it's one of the best run businesses I've ever seen.
That's good.
Its board is exceptional.
Yeah.
It's finance committee, the budget and finance committee I was on, and I know nothing. I just watch what they do. They do a great job. But in addition, the thing that I think both you, Hannah, and I like, the JCC exposes this community, exposes the entire community to Jewish people that they normally would not see or be involved with. Nowhere else. Go to our synagogue, it's not exposing the community to Jews.
Well, yeah, I think that's a very good point, which is why a lot of people like the Richmond Food Festival. And the truth is the JCC does it over the course of a whole year. The Food Festival does it in a very concentrated 2-day period. But it's a very good point. It's very important, especially in the day and age that we live in terms of distrust or in terms of not knowing or understanding other communities. So that's a very good point. So Hannah, one more question for you, if I can, and then maybe we'll sign off for Shabbos. So I know that the rabbi here came to your kitchen, to kosher the kitchen many, many years ago. What was that like to have a rabbi in your kitchen and kind of messing around with these practices here of trying to kosher it? And what was that experience like for you?
It was great. First of all, I came from an Orthodox home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even Alan, whose parents were American and probably conservative
Mm-hmm.
in denomination, but they quasi kept kosher. There was no tray food that entered the
He
house.
didn't sell any tray food in our neighborhood. He didn't sell any tray food.
So did Rabbi Rowan just say, "Oh, I'm coming over," and
Well, yes, and I had prepared all the pots and the pans, and you know, I had to go to the mikveh and tovel them and the whole thing. And we were in that mode, and it was Rabbi Rowan. I mean, he's a lot like you in that way. Very relatable, and it's easy to be around him as it is. It's very, very easy to be around you. I never feel like you're looking down at me or you know, holier than thou, for lack of a better expression. But it was a very interesting experience, and it worked. So I got kosher stuff now.
well, this is very interesting. That's a great story. I just all of the related activities that go inside the shul, outside the shul, connected to the shul. It's really beautiful for us to think about. And just it's an incredible story. Your stories from New York and from Europe and from difficulty and tragedy, whether it's financial or something more significant, existential, and just being able to then come to traditional synagogue and to help with the management, administration, the leadership, and even taking out the trash. All of that is really, it's a very cool story to look back on and to consider. And I hope that the people in the shul try to get to know each other, get to know everybody has some interesting stories in their background. That's what I find when you begin to talk to people. And I hope that this series continues and people take the time to listen and to see people's faces when it's hard to actually see other people's faces these days. So I wish you both a wonderful Shabbos, because we are filming this or recording this on Erev Shabbos Kodesh. And hope all of you stay well, stay healthy, stay patient.
Thank you, Rabbi.